Hello, everyone. This is Debra Richardson, and today I am putting the AP in Happy, where accounts payable teams are empowered to protect the vendor master file from fraud. This podcast will give a voice to accounts payable team members by talking about the growing reality of cyber attacks in their world and which vendor setup and vendor management techniques they can apply to protect the vendor master file from fraud. Need training? Visit the Vendor Process Training Center to enroll in your choice of weekly live and on-demand training sessions. Plus, get access to vendor setup form templates and reference tools that will help you and your team avoid fraud, fines, and bad vendor data. So sign up for a free account to get access to free training sessions, vendor process FAQs, and a resource library with information you need to manage your vendor master file. Visit training.debrarrichardson.com today. The link will be in the show notes. Don't you just love it when the IRS comes out with new forms? Well, actually, this form you probably will love. Keep listening. Welcome to episode 308, a new IRS form that can make it easier to request an extension for distributing 1099’s and 1042’s to vendors. Now, there I go again. I have some of the longest titles, and I know they're long, and this is going to be me in about 40 minutes trying to get that long title on my podcast visual. So there you go. But it is a new form, right, that can make it easier, because prior to this year, there was no form if you needed to file an extension to ask the IRS to give you extra time to furnish statements to recipients. So that's sending the 1099’s to the vendors. If you couldn't do it no later than having it postmarked January 31st or, February 1 or 2, depending on the year and whether or not it fell on a business. January 31st fell on a business day. But if you couldn't do that, then you could send in a letter. It was fax only. And if it was approved, you only got 30 days. Now, it says only 30 days, but 30 days is 30 days. And then the only option was to fax the request or your letter in, and they gave a specific fax number. Now, for this year, and this form came out August of 2024. It is Form 1042’s, and this form is now available. And the name of the form is Application for Extension of Time to Furnish Recipient Statements. And this includes forms W-2, W-2G, 1042’s, 1094C, 1095, 1097, 1098, 1099, 3921, 3922, 5498, and 8596. Now, I don't know if you're involved in filing any of those other forms, but 1099’s and 1042’s are definitely within the vendor setup and maintenance team or the AP team, because 1042’s are for W-8, non-U.S. or foreign payee vendors, and the 1099’s are for W-9 or U.S. vendors. Now, I am going to leave a link to the form in the show notes so you can get directly to it, but I'll just talk about what is included on the form. So first off, the IRS tells you to not use this form to request an extension to file information returns with the IRS. So that for that type of request, you would want to use Form 88 1099. And so make sure you make a distinction between filing for an extension to send the 1099s and the 1042s to vendors, and filing an extension to send the information returns to the IRS, to actually do the filing with the IRS. All right. Oh, and one big difference between those two is when you file 8809, there is an automatic extension. And for this one, it is not that case. It is a approval process. And so if you get approved, and I said it earlier, if you get approved, you would have 30 days. But that is if you get approved, it's not automatic. All right, so that was the first thing on this form, telling you what not to use it for. And then it has just 5 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, along with a signature and a date. So the form is only 1 page, and on line 1, it is asking for the issuers or transmitters information. So their name, address, city, state, country code, zip code, contact name, telephone number, email address. And then line 2, it's asking for the 9-digit taxpayer identification number. Line 3, it's asking if you're requesting an extension for more than one issue transmitter. Enter the total number of issuers, transmitters, and attach a type list of names and tax IDs. And get this, the list must be typed in 12-point font and legible. So none of those fancy fonts, guys. And if issuing or if sending an individual form 15397 for each request, do not enter an amount. So it might just be easier to send a separate form for each issuer or transmitter if you are filing for multiple, and you need to request extensions for each. Now, the number 4 is to identify which forms you are requesting an extension for. So that's an easy checkbox. And then number 5 is asking you to describe your need for an extension to furnish recipient copies of information returns. Now, I'll just kind of stop right there and say that in the instructions, the IRS does not give any guidance on what you need to include here. And so I'll stop at that too, but just know that the next area is the signature area, and right above there, it says under penalties of perjury, I declare that I've examined this form, including any accompanying statements, and to the best of my knowledge and belief, it is true, correct, and complete. And so I'll just leave that right there. Now, the signature, title, and date, the IRS does give some instruction or guidelines on who needs to sign. It is supposed to be signed by the issuer, transmitter, or person duly authorized to sign a return. Now, when is this due? Well, this form is due as soon as you know that you cannot make the filing deadline, but within 30 days of when it is due. And so if you're looking at a January 31st due date, so January 31st, 2025 is not a weekend, so that will be the date. So you need to have it in at least 30 days prior to that. All right, so that's it for today. It's a short one. I will be at the Chicago IFOL Accounts Payable Leadership Conference. I hope you're going to be there. I love meeting folks in person. And so I'm going to take off for that. But I did want to give just a really quick podcast episode of this new form because it is new. And don't forget to check the show notes to click on the form, the link for the form, so you can download it, take a look at it for yourself, download it, and then you'll have it if you happen to need it. All right, so thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed the 308th episode of the Putting the AP in Happy podcast, where accounts payable teams are empowered to protect the vendor master file from fraud. Don't forget to check the show notes for the links mentioned in the podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing and writing a review of my podcast on the platform that you use to listen. Stay happy.